I'm so happy to see you, Shannon. We've been talking about doing this podcast, Hazy Not Crazy, for a while.
Forever,
And then
huh?
COVID hit. It's still very much here. Um, but as you heard in the intro, Shannon and I have over 67 years of seizure mayhem experience. And how long have we known each other? It's been what, 11, 12 years?
Yeah, I think so. 11 or 12 years for sure.
Yeah, so we've been able to develop an awesome, unique relationship. We first connected at the Epilepsy Foundation.
Hmm.
I'll never forget when you walked in and you just said, "I want to help," and help you did. Um, and that relationship grew. We got to collaborate on things. And one of my favorite things that I'm excited to rope in our first guest, SABER, is going to be the big brain exhibit in that California tour we did. Um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I know we have a shared passion for advocacy in our community. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce Shannon here. She's California bred. She's a wife, a parent of 3 children,
Hmm.
and has an extensive background in social work. And she's one of the fiercest advocates for epilepsy you will ever meet. She's currently the director of the Huntley Foundation that runs our California outreach, and she does support groups, which I'd love to talk about, and maybe rope in some people from the support groups here if they'd love to be interviewed.
100%. Yep. Yep.
And I know you're purely just driven by that desire to help. And I'm so excited to explore this podcast and talk to other people across the country. And as for me, my name's Nate. I'm Kentucky bred, and I'm a musician, filmmaker, writer, and lover of comedy. I spent a decade at the Epilepsy Foundation. I was really honored to help develop the 3 S's of seizure first aid, and we raised thousands of dollars for our Walk to End Epilepsy, which is now a national movement, which is pretty cool. And I would
Yep.
produce 30 plus videos to and help create relevant and accurate information to raise awareness for people with epilepsy. And I can't wait to talk more about that. Um, but I'm really also driven by the millions of kids that we know, Shannon, that don't have a voice and are just constantly under the barrage of
Mhm.
seizures. So I can't wait to
Yeah.
uh-huh.
And constantly, and I just want to say that Nathan said 67 combined years of epilepsy experience. And I just want to note for the listeners that's personal experience that we each have epilepsy. And I think there's something to be said. Um, when you personally have epilepsy, you are better able to understand when somebody's talking about epilepsy. So when we say personally, we have been kids and teenagers and college students and 20 somethings. And, we've experienced all these, married people, people with jobs. My youngest daughter's adopted. I've, I've been a mom, I've given birth, I've adopted, so together we've, we've really run the gamut for what people with epilepsy do and are able to do and what they cannot do. And I think I'm excited to share that with everyone. And I think it's going to be fun. Nathan's really funny, so I'm excited. I think it's going
Didn't
to be a
she?
good. So, but I think the personal experience is awesome.
Yeah, which kind
It's
of
not awesome, but it's awesome to
no,
be able to share
but
that.
it's so relevant for something like this. And I think that speaks. To, my next point was I wanted to share with our listeners what this is kind of all about, and you hit the nail on the head there. You know, as of yet, there's certainly no sponsors. We're just starting this. There's no underlining agenda, no pharma companies, no political push. It's gonna be. This is a podcast. Uh, by people with epilepsy for people with epilepsy, and to make you laugh, smile, and cry, which from our early 20s we've been doing, and I think hopefully grow from that.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
um,
I mean,
I,
hence the name Hazy Not Crazy, right? That in and of itself, we did a lot of research. We asked a lot of people with epilepsy, without epilepsy, about the title of this podcast, and everybody liked Hazy Not Crazy. You know, I mean, and it is kind of funny because if you are personally connected to epilepsy, you get it. You understand that.
Yeah.
And on a level that maybe other people don't. And so we're here to help everybody understand that we're hazy. We're not crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I really relate to that, and maybe the second episode we'll share some of the runner-ups titles that
Oh
we
yeah,
were
that's a
talking
good
about.
idea. I
Yeah,
love it. I
that would be
love it.
fun. I'm gonna go ahead and text our first guest, Saber. We'll go ahead and get him in the green room. But I think, and I'm really excited to talk to. His name's Ryan. To Ryan, and one of the things that I think is gonna separate this, podcast, from the pack is that I really look forward to sharing stories that have never publicly been spoken with the people we'll talk about. My experience, working for so long in the advocacy world is, you know, time and place. And I look forward to just having this great vibe about the podcast where people can open up and share some of these, stories. So, speaking of which, we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring in Saber.
All right. I'm excited.
Yeah. There he is. What's up, brother?
Hello.
There you are. You got the nice scruff going on.
Look at that. Yeah.
It's gonna come off. It comes off.
Oh, you
This
get
comes off too. Look at.
Oh,
I'm
you
getting
look
these now.
Yeah, you're getting those, man. Hey, welcome to the family, brother. Shannon, you don't have that problem yet. Shannon's got the beautiful
Not
long
yet,
locks.
but we'll get there.
Yep.
We're getting there soon.
Ryan, thank you
What's
for
That's why
joining.
it's so long, Nathan. That's why it's so long. I'm like holding on to every last moment of but I feel like I'm almost getting to the age where I probably should, start to think about not having hair longer than my 15-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Nah, you both look great. Ryan, thanks for coming on. I wanted to give listeners, I think a lot of people obviously within the epilepsy community really are aware of the work you've done in the past, right? But I don't know how familiar they might have been with like how you rose to prominence. So I got this little thing I'd like to just kind of read from mural form that this is back from 1997, and this is such a crazy story. You've been doing big things for so long, huge things, and this proves it right here. So, Saber first rose to prominence in '97 with his massive mural on the banks of the LA River. Began getting international attention. The mural measured 55 feet high and over 250 feet in length, and reportedly took over 95 gallons of paint and 35 days to complete. Highly visible from the East LA interchange and a satellite, by the way. You could see this thing from space. It was seen by millions and stayed up for 12 years. Now get this, before it was buffed by the U.S. military. This piece was so big, and I want to show a picture here real quick. That's a picture of the mural done by Saber.
Wow.
And here's another picture for everybody watching this online. If you look in the middle, you can see him right in the middle. That's how large that piece is.
Wow.
In the
That's
middle.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. And so, Saber, in this interview earlier by Mural Form, you noted it was quite a way to go out, noting that the government could probably be spending their money in better ways than the Army using millions of federal funds to help fuel the LA war on graffiti. And we'll talk about some of your other advocacy work. This is why I love this guy. I mean, it's go big or go home through and through. And I'm so honored to have met you. How, is that still one of your favorite pieces, or one like you're most possibly known for? No? Yeah. Tell us about that.
That was when I was pretty young, I guess. So it was just wanted to do the biggest and do it where it wasn't supposed to be. So I guess what makes it interesting is the stories behind the fact that it was done illegally. So everything had to be done at night and snuck into the place. And so that's what made it so interesting, I guess, is not the sense that it was all fun and games. It was a lot of I had to go into the belly of the beast of LA and kind of learn my way into these like dangerous circumstances. And that's a whole thing in itself. Just to get that photograph, I put my parents through hell because I would steal the car and then drive a long way and then come back in the middle of the night. And so
Did we lose him for a second?
I think we did.
there we are.
Oh, there you are.
Yep.
Yeah, there is a bit of a delay. Um, anyway, my dad got chased just to get that photograph,
Oh
and
my
so
gosh.
that was kind of fun. He enjoyed it. It was a good adventure for him. So that was cool.
I want to talk about some of your advocacy work, um, and talking about seizures. I mean, I've been in the epilepsy monitoring unit numerous times. I'd like to share a picture of that right now as well. That was one we took. You remember that, Ryan?
Yeah, that was a fun week. That
Yeah.
was a fun week. We learned a
Getting
lot that week, though.
Yeah, we did learn a lot that week. And one thing that kind of struck me, I was watching some footage from that earlier. It was actually, I think it was your daughter's birthday while you were in there. And
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I know it was you were had to sing her happy birthday over FaceTime, and she was worried about dad. And you know, it was really kind of special to just kind of witness that and see you kind of overcome and persevere. Can you talk about some of those maybe lonelier moments? You know,
I'd have to say that obviously this is kind of where it goes to the root of everything right here, and it's kind of opening up um, the circumstances and the things that have kind of happened. One, I would say it starts with um, Megan, and where she's helped me kind of guide through a lot of these episodes and the whole journey. There were many years where we didn't even get diagnosed. So I was having seizure after seizure after seizure, and we didn't even know that I was having seizures. And it was her that did the research online to come to the terms to say, Ryan, I think you're having seizures. And we didn't
wow.
even know what was going on. And so I had to go on a pretty dark adventure, which was for quite a while having these major grand mal seizures and then waking up in the ER. And eventually I woke up in pretty much all the ERs of LA. I would wake up and be undiagnosed and then kick back out on the street. And then it would be basically, there's something wrong with you and you're a bad person. And eventually I just gave up until Megan did the research and was like, you're having seizures. This is what's going on with you. And that then led me down the road of, okay, I need to find help. I need to find medical help. And I didn't get a neurologist for 10 years. And I would have to sneak meds. I was sneaking Keppra from a doctor all the way in Thousand Oaks. I would drive once a month to get samples. And then I would have the reactions of having Keppra, which is Kep rage, which is a completely crazy thing. And we didn't even know I would have these like major rage episodes and not even realize what the fuck is happening. And Megan did there. She's like, you're having a reaction from this medicine, Keppra. And we didn't even realize that the medicine was causing all these like dangerous situations and things happening to me. And that's just one circumstance. And it's been a dark road with seizures because I mean, I just had a seizure last week in front of my kid's school, They
Oh
just
wow.
started in new
It
school. And
it
I
Wow.
had
it
a seizure in front of the whole school, like ladies praying over me, like giving me an exorcism and shit. It was, oh my God. I woke up in the ER and they're like, you had another seizure, Mr. Shook. So at least they know me there. So we're like, cool. But, you know, I had a seizure. I was with David Cho in Barcelona, and we just arrived late at night. And to get to the place, it's like, I need to get some food. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I didn't realize I was having auras. So I raced outside to go get some food, and I had a seizure I had a grand mal in front of the Gaudi Cathedral.
oh
And
goodness.
Wow.
at like
That's
3
something
a.m.
not a lot of people could say, Saber. I
Yeah.
bet, you know, you're few and far between right there.
The Gaudi Cathedral. So I woke up wrestling the EMT, not realizing what the fuck is going on. And by the way, my shoulder's not attached. So every time I have an episode, my shoulder dislocates.
Ooh.
Mm.
And so I was in the middle of the street right in front of the Gaudi Cathedral. And then I woke up to the Gaudi Cathedral and I couldn't figure out, because I couldn't figure out the time difference between when I was post-tictal and from when I landed. I was like, how the fuck did I end up in front of the Gaudi Cathedral? So in my mind, I was so cracked out, I thought I teleported. and then I refused care. The EMT actually knew. They were like, something's wrong, sir. You need to get help. We think you had a seizure. And I was like, no, I don't care. Fuck you. And so I wrestled my way away from them, and I got lost in the city in Barcelona for
While you were
3 hours.
post-dictal, just like
Post-tictal, just lurking around Barcelona, trying to find my way back to this mysterious spot. And then David Cho was like,
was
when
he
I finally
with you?
got there, he wasn't with. I was by myself. He was still waiting for me at the apartment we were staying at.
Oh,
So he thought I
man.
went off and partied. He thought I was like partying. And I'm like,
He
no,
thought
dude,
you were at a
something happened.
discoteca.
Yeah.
I was partying in Barcelona, but I still wasn't diagnosed. So we still didn't know what was going on with me, you know? And so this went on for many, many years, where I basically was having these major seizures. And it turns out that the seizures that I have are most of the time in my sleep. So I'll go to sleep and then I'll wake up in the ER. And this has now happened over 100 times, 200 times. I've lost count at this point. I've lost count to the point of where I would come home and rip all the stickers off. And so I started basically piling the stickers up. It's like an art piece. And they became so thick like a pillow that a face emerged from it. And I have this like weird little emoji face that's all the piles of all the stickers from the EMTs coming home. So there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I even got to sneak a few IVs, so it's like part of his beard. It's like this weird like face. I'm gonna sell that piece for like $10 million one day. All the cost of the medical.
There you
Say,
go.
fuck you. This is gonna be auctioned at like $5 million. That's what it costs to get me through, assholes. But I have a VNS. Now this is where, excuse me, because I'm standing in my hallway to try to get us a good connection. So, and a dog
Good
might
connection
bark.
and good background. That's great.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of a hard time talking, and my voice goes in and out because I have a VNS. And so Nate, how we kind of came was I had lost complete hope at this point because I was having so many grand mals and none of the medication was working. And the episodes were so severe that I couldn't continue. It was too hard. And I was putting my family through so much hell because they would see me go through all these major episodes. And so, you know, it got way too much. And there was at this point no cure. It was basically just give up. So I get a random phone call from some mysterious number. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hi, my name is Nate. I'm like, hi, Nate. He's like, I hear you're having a hard time. I'm like, Yeah, who the fuck are you? Like, why are you calling me? Like, and he's like, I want to help you. I'm like, yeah, right. You want to help me? Who the fuck wants to help me? And he's like, no, for real. He's like, I'm from the Epilepsy Foundation. I'm like, okay, how'd you get my number? And he's like, I don't remember that part. And I said, well, at this point, I don't really care who you are because I have no more options. So if you are somebody willing to help me, then fine. What do you want to do for me? And he's like, let's try to connect you to somebody somewhere. And so that led me down the road of actually finding a doctor, getting into the right system, getting into USC finally, which took me 20 years before the pre-existing condition clause, which, by the way, Fox News came after me pretty hard over that one, which was kind of cool that I was all over Fox News for like 2 weeks. So that's a good one to look up. But they could still fuck off. But so I have a VNS, and the VNS, basically the doctor was like, you have no more options. Your last option is a VNS. And so how do we tell this story? My last meal. How do we remember the last my last meal? Remember that story?
The steak.
My last meal. We had my last meal together.
Yeah.
Remember the raisin guy? He had no legs or arms.
Yep.
The poor guy that was next to me, and he kept trying to kill himself by holding his breath, and then we would make fun of each other for like a week.
Hospital buddies.
And then he finally rolled himself out, and he had no arms or legs, and he was like a raisin. He was this poor guy. But we made good friends. We were buddies. But so I ended up with a VNS. My last meal. Shit, there's so many stories. How do we even tell this?
Well, you're talking about. I think that you saw a specialist after 10 plus years, and I think it pisses me off. And we talked about, you were talking about your Fox News bit a little bit, how you'd been such an advocate, and I wanted to circle back to that. This is a good time, I think. You did an American flag piece. I'm going to show a picture of it right here. You did a video, and you outlined the American flag, and you can see very clearly in the middle, it says epilepsy. You're a self-employed artist. I suffer from epilepsy. And there's a lot of and that video's online, and then Obama's team had picked it up, and it was a finalist for this competition about artists communicating why it's important for people with pre-existing conditions to have health insurance, because maybe some people listening don't remember the day when, if you had epilepsy, an insurance company could qualify that as a pre-existing condition and deny you health insurance. So the idea that you're in and out of ERs, well, it's because you don't have health insurance. And and then so SABER did that, and then of course Sean Hannity, Fox News, they picked this up. They just completely relegated to this artist desecrating the flag, which is complete bullshit. And it was a very powerful piece and a very strong advocacy piece. That was huge. We'll leave some links to those interviews with Ryan, giving them hell in the notes section. But
cool.
I mean, that was before, obviously you knew you had epilepsy, but that was before we met. So you weren't part of sort of an advocacy organization, but that was you by yourself as an artist. And I think that's so powerful. Yeah. I mean, you weren't connected to anybody.
No.
Yeah. And
I had no political agenda.
I love that. It really kind of moves me. I'm kind of curious, SABER, you mentioned the word dark twice, on more than one occasion. It was a dark time. How did you, or what do you see was the kind of the turning point to being able to pull yourself out of the dark time and be where you are today? I guess maybe in order, from dark to acceptance. Like, how did that happen? Because seizures are dark no matter how you look at it. Right. But here you are now, a different person.
Well, it's still a process.
Sure.
So it's definitely not quite there yet, I would say. But I'm definitely in a different place I was from 2 years ago than I am now. Um, some of that has to do with maybe the VNS working a bit. Some of it also has to do with me just trying to evolve with some of my own feelings and things like that. But I'm still working through it, I guess. But the one of the things that keeps me going, is definitely my family and the people around me, but also working. Like I love to paint, I love to work, and as long as I have something going on for myself, then I always feel at least excited to keep pushing forward. So some of the times where I was at my lowest points, some of the things that snapped me out of it a little bit was the fact that I knew I wanted to paint and find that little zone and establish an idea and actually fulfill it, even if I couldn't move well that day or I was recovering, because these seizures, these episodes that I have are really severe. So I'll have 2, 3, 4 grand malls in one episode, and then I'll come home and recover from that. So it might take me a week or two, just the brain scramble that's after that. One of the interesting brain scramble I get is I look at people's faces and I swear I know the person, but I don't know them. And it's a weird face recognition thing that happens to me after a seizure, that when I walk into a room, I'll look at people's faces and look at it again and be like, I swear to God, get that weird feeling when you look at someone's face and you go, I know that person. Where do I know that person from? So picture that feeling to every person that you see. And this starts, but like, at first I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was going nuts, but hazy, not crazy. Finally realizing that it's part of the brain scramble after fact, and so that's a whole issue in itself. Just thinking about what you go through with your mind after a
Sure.
seizure and before a seizure. Um, but the thing that keeps me going is knowing that I want to keep making stuff and keep working on things and keep painting. And even after an episode, when I would come home, um, I would go in the back and paint sometimes and be productive and kind of be by myself and let my brain scream at itself for that a whole day. And my brain just screams at itself until it starts to heal again. And then just go through that process. But I still am working on it. It's doesn't seem to, the dark cloud that's over you for having seizures doesn't seem to go away. And I guess if you have seizures, and it's a fear of like knowing that it's always there is part of life that you have to learn to deal with.
Right.
And,
Right.
so for me, it's like, um, I guess, depending on how much I can censor myself, in this conversation, like I'm trying to censor myself to a certain degree, because we can go to some really fucked up places, some really
Sure.
dark, weird, fucked up, dark shit. And it has
Well,
to
maybe
do
we'll
with
do that
being
another show.
No, we can do it.
another
Whatever.
show, because I don't know how far I can censor myself to a certain degree here,
No, just let it
but
go. Let it go.
Yeah. That's,
well, let's see. I guess there were those times where the seizures had taken over to where I couldn't. I knew that the death was obviously a part of it, and dying part is part of it. So one of the times that was interesting was I actually died twice on Vimpat. One of the side effects is if you have a heart attack during an episode, you have to be taking it off immediately. So I was on Vimpat and I had two. I guess I had two heart attacks during those episodes, and I was my wife was on the phone, I guess, and was hearing this, and so I guess they pumped my chest twice and I got zapped, I guess, and and shot with it, and I came back. So the whole floor was ecstatic that I had survived because they knew me. But I didn't know any of this. I didn't see anything. There was nothing. Okay. So it was black. And one of the core terms that I use is return from the dark void is a title that I use for that particular piece with the face that's piled up. And I'll use that as a point of reference, return from the dark void. So the nurses that were on the floor were Catholic, quite a few of them. And the doctors were really excited that they had saved me. And I still was trying to process all this stuff and didn't even realize this had happened to me. So they kept me for 3 or 4 days. And I wanted to get home. So I'm just like, I just want to get home. But the nurses kept coming to me and kept saying, oh, Mio, did you see any angels? Did you see any angels? So all these ladies kept coming in asking me if I saw any angels. Even the doctors kept coming in. They were like, what did you experience? And I go, what the fuck do you mean, what did I experience? And so I had to process to realize that all these people were really excited that they saved my life. And at this point, I didn't give a fuck. I was so mad and so hurt by going through all this shit that I had enough. And I was like, fucking let me die. I'm cool. I'm over it. And so I had to process the fact that all these people were happy that I had lived. Okay. So then I had to come to terms with this whole idea of religion immediately. It was like Jesus, God, religion, Buddhism, whatever the fuck it is, everything. Existentialism. I experienced nothing. I experienced blackness. I experienced darkness. I experienced the leash, let's call it. Like basically you're deleted. You're gone. Okay. You've been moved to the trash pile and gone. Okay. And I've seen a lot of death. I've seen a lot of people die in front of me. I've seen people hurt and pass in front of me. I've been involved in things and seen things. So I've had to process death many times in my life. So this time I had to process my own death, which I had been through a few times, but not to this level. So I had to come to terms with that there is no heaven. There is no hell. There is no God. There is no Jesus. There's nothing. Nothing. And nothing is beautiful because there's no more suffering. Everything is gone. It doesn't matter. But what does matter and what heaven to me had to come to terms with was heaven or hell is what you've left behind in other people, that your memories, your imprints. For me as an artist, it's very important because I have artifacts left behind and scratches in bathrooms and whatever the fuck you want to go, little trail you want to go down. But how people process your memory is the type of person you were. Were you a good person? People love you when you're gone. That's what heaven or hell is. Do people care if you die? Are people happy about your life force when they think about you? That's heaven or hell. And I had realized I had been in so much turmoil that I had caused hell around people around me because of these seizures, because of these episodes, because of my own selfishness, because of all this other shit that I've been through and put myself through. So I had to realize that fuck heaven. Who cares? What matters is the fact that I care about what other people think about my life force. And if you're a good person, if you're left behind as a good person. And so these seizures have put me so many times so close to the edge of having to process what life force is, what perception means, what does perception mean as far as like when you come back from the dark void, and how your mind as a computer processes all this shit, because we're a dysfunctional computer. Our electric forces aren't working properly. Our wires are crossed. And so I have interesting seizures because I have them all over my brain. So I have them all over the place. And another time I had to process death was that night when I had my last meal, because my doctor put me in a CT scan and they happened to catch a seizure during the CT scan that was right in the center of my brain. And they had never seen anything like it. So they were tripping, and I was supposed to go home. So my family was coming to pick me up after a week being there. And they were like, wait a minute, you can't go home now. I was like, what do you mean I can't go home? They're like, we found something in the center of your brain we've never seen before. So we got to hold you now because you're going to die. I'm like, okay, fuck. You give me some morphine or some Dilaudid or something, like hook me up. Like, this sucks. So I was like, well, I guess we got to get a last meal, right, Nate? I got my last meal. What do we get? What do you order your last meal? I guess you have a steak or some shit, right? Like steak. So we
Tomahawk
got a big
steaks, baby.
Big ass Brazilian steak.
Tomahawk steak.
Oh God, it's terrible, the whole thing. So I'm sitting there in the gown with no fucking pants on, like hooked up to machines, like eating my fucking steak, swollen because I beat to prove a point about having the seizure. The doctor allowed me to do an experiment, which she wasn't quite prepared for, which was very interesting, which was tying me up to the machine where they hold you if you're incapacitated. And it's this like dolly type for humans. That's how I saw homie get wheeled out with no arms and legs. He was like, later, bro, like getting wheeled out in this like crazy thing. So they put me in this thing. And I didn't have a seizure for a week, and I was wired up to, and they were like, we need to have a seizure. So I said, well, I'll tell you how I can have a seizure. Let me beat the shit out of the bathroom. And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, just let me beat the shit out of something, and then I'll have a seizure. And they said, okay. So I said, all right. So they put me in this thing, this like dolly diaper crazy thing, and they wheeled me into the bathroom. And they said, okay, Mr. Shook, you have 3 minutes to get mad. And they thought I was just going to get like mad. Like,
it's like a stress test.
They thought I was going to do like they didn't realize how mad I was going to get. So they put me in this thing, and it's like a swing on me, but it's a diaper. And I'm like swinging, but it's metal and it's heavy. So I could use it to beat the fuck out of the bathroom. So I'm in this thing, and they close the door, and I said, give me. So I just took it all out on the bathroom, and there was a metal chair that didn't last long. I completely shattered the metal chair. I destroyed all the tile. I destroyed all the fucking machine. I tried to break my hands, but I couldn't. I tried to break my knees. I couldn't. I just smashed through the tile. I just smashed through the whole bathroom. So they were like, stop. I was like, but you want me to do this. This is an experiment. We have to do this. So I did it and basically came out bloodied, scratched to shit, hand definitely fractured in multiple places. And so they didn't know what to do after that. And I said, well, make sure you're aware, because now I'm going to have a seizure. Mm-hmm. And so that morning I had a major seizure. I had 2 grand malls. And that was the first time I got to witness a seizure because it was being filmed. And so they said, do you want to see what happens? And I said, yeah. And out of all the things that I've seen in my life, I've seen people killed. I've been through terrible things that were bad. And so I had to come to terms with really what this is all about, because for the first time in my life, I saw myself have the seizure and what my body goes through and how my face contorted. And it really was like some exorcist shit. And so out of all the ugly things I've seen on my adventures, that was the ugliest thing I've ever witnessed, was watching my body and face contort to such a level that it was breaking. And to see the nurses just strip me all the way down naked as I'm pissing all over myself, shoulder completely dislocating, jaw dislocating. And to see that, I was just like, fuck, that's another time to process where I fit in this world, and what does it mean to be alive and awake. And so this whole adventure of seizures. This is just one adventure. There's hundreds of seizures. I had a seizure. I don't know if I should tell this one though. This one maybe gonna.
No,
yeah,
go,
I don't know.
no. I mean, go ahead, man. I mean,
I like what Nathan says. Let it go.
Let it go.
I don't know. Like,
we started
This
this.
is, you know what, Saber? This is good for you, and it's good for everybody listening.
Yeah.
Because everybody listening has had this experience on some level, and it's so good. It's like, oh yes, somebody else has been through that, and it's not somebody at the Epilepsy Foundation who has to tell me they've been through that. Like, this is a real person. And I want to, and they want to hear it.
Well, I guess, okay, there's the few.
What's one that you haven't, you know, we talked about the story. What, maybe one that you haven't publicly shared, you know? I mean, the brain can do anything when it's having a seizure.
This one's interesting. Okay, this one's interesting. This is a little private.
Okay.
I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this one, but this one's a little interesting. Sorry about the dog. My connection sucks a little bit.
No, it's good.
So I had to see my last 2 episodes ago. Sorry, I guess I'm gonna tell it, Megan. I don't care. I'll tell it. The one where okay, so
you don't have to.
I had a really bad seizure while taking a shit.
Mm-hmm.
My last one.
Okay.
Then it's never really happened to me. So I was taking a shit in the morning and I had a seizure. Okay, that's a bad situation for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Okay. So my poor wife had to drag me to the bathroom, out of the bathroom into bed, give me the Ativan, and try to keep me alive. Mm-hmm. So I guess from what I recall, I don't quite understand what happened, but I had another seizure, but this time, I guess I busted a huge nut while having the seizure. I've never experienced it. I'm not there. I'm not witnessing this. I'm not involved. I have no agenda. This isn't my thing. So I wake up completely paid with a hard on, I guess, and I'm completely covered in nut, and she's trying to get me back in bed. And I'm like trying to hug her or something like an idiot. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm not involved. So I wake up just a complete disaster. Okay. Just a complete disaster. Meanwhile, okay. That was the 2 seizures ago. Mm-hmm. So anyway, So what's interesting is the fact that I needed to process that I'm having seizures in different parts of my brain that are then being affected by the seizure. Clearly, so I wasn't involved. I wasn't there, but it was interesting to see what happens. Another time to process my own mortality, I started a bath one time. And I had a seizure over the bath head first. And Megan came in as I was having the grand mal seizure over the bath, about to drown, and she pulled me out right before I drowned.
That's a lot to unpack right there. So you're in a seizure, you're taking a shit, and then I guess you just go to bus town.
Which is I wouldn't tell this story if it wasn't interesting in the sense that I had a seizure, and this was like this whole episode.
Well, one thing we talked about with the big brain exhibit, I mean, it's very valid. Anything the brain can do when it's not having a seizure, it can do while it's having a seizure. And you're not in control of your body. And, I had to laugh my butt off at that because, when you deal with situations, that's sort of hilarious, but you having a seizure is not
it's a good
funny
comedy
at all.
act.
Yeah,
for sure. Like,
You
I
can
love
take that
making
one
fun
on
of all this shit, man. Like, we got to process all this madness.
Right.
Like, you know, what is interesting, though, is the fact to come to terms with that your brain is a processor. And everything that we think life isn't, in the sense of how we process and perceive things. And so the seizures, like drugs use, like certain things that happen in life that make you process things, you know, each seizure you have is a traumatic experience, you know, and so you have these multiple layers of traumatic experiences where you're basically like, you know, always on the edge of dying, especially with the way other people describe what you're going through. So for me as an artist, I was always like into the idea of you know, this Van Gogh-esque, like, you know, sacrifice of this grand artist idea that one day I'm going to be immortalized as this, you know, artist that did these great things. And graffiti was my way of using that tool, and how I was going to go about expressing these, you know, these adventures. To start off these adventures, I had kind of wanted to prove myself. And one of those ways was you get jumped into a gang. And for me, I didn't realize it was a complete farce and it was total bullshit. But at the time I was in 10th grade and I basically got sucked into this initiation, and I had a really bad traumatic brain injury, and I was beat really severely. And I was, you know, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was a pretty young kid at the time, not realizing what I had been through and processing that.
Do you think that's what started the seizures? Is that when you got
Well,
jumped
not
in?
fully. Well, not fully, because what also started my seizures was the fact that I was basically drinking spray paint for 20 years straight, like
Oh,
straight up drinking spray paint, like not even
because
no
no,
give
yeah,
fuck, you know, all out, like to the point of no return, drinking fucking spray paint.
yeah,
So with the combination of that, with the combination of the stress and the traumas, with the combination of the head injuries, um, that mixture, basically, and I think also the fact that you know, there's definitely an adrenaline thing going on, because we would do things that other people hadn't done yet. So I would hang off freeway trestles illegally and hide from helicopters. I was a specialist at that, and I'm still pretty good at it. You know, these are things about, this is about the beast, the belly of the beast itself, and leaving your mark behind and trying to feel significant in the world. Little did I know that going through that adventure of trying to prove myself as an artist and to try to be the best that I could be, I developed this condition. And I had never had this before. I wasn't unwell, you know, as a kid. So that really had to force me to come to terms with what the cost of things are, you know, what you belief systems are. So I believed I was invincible, and that if I went out in a cloud of flames, then I had done the right thing, because then I immortalized myself in some way, shape, or form. And this is like the basic, you know, processing that you go through as an artist, as a young man, coming from LA, like coming from, like, being part of culture that's outside the norm. I had to come to terms with the reality of life, which is that I was not invincible, that I had these limitations, that my perception was off completely, because I was giving myself the wrong ideas in the sense of what was important. And having children, having kids, definitely forced me to come to terms with that, because they're also part of this process. So my children have seen almost every episode I've had, and they know what to do now. And so I've never seen what they've seen, and they see me wrestle the EMT. They see my shoulder rip out and them trying to get me in bed, and the neighbors coming out, and, you know, the whole fucking scene. But, you know, you really have to come to terms with your mortality. And at the end of the day, I think if you did your best and you tried your best and you tried to be a good person, then you're good. You're in heaven. You did the right thing.
Wow.
Because me, when I go to the, you know, think about this. Think about whenever I talk to somebody like, you never been through shit. I go, I know I haven't. I get that. I get it. But I'm the nice, good-looking guy, the hero in the neurology department at USC. So come hang out with me in the neurology department at USC, and then we'll start talking about humanity. You know what I'm saying? It's all just like the cancer unit, just like orthopedics, whatever. Fuck you. My shoulder's not even attached at this point. It's like whatever. But neurology, you see people really going through some shit. You know, it's no joke. And when you see a child, you see a little girl, you see a mother who's there early, who's trying to get into that appointment and to see her child, and her child doesn't know what the hell is going on, and no one knows what the hell is going on. Like, that's hard to process. And when you see that girl get wheeled in who cannot walk or cannot move, you know, you have respect for those people because they're going through it 10 times harder than I am. And I can still go right now, go paint a beautiful painting right now. I can enjoy my children right now and not be an asshole and try to be better. And that's the whole key to the seizures. The seizures have really pushed me to a limit in life to say what is really important and what isn't. And you caught me, Nate. You caught me at the perfect fucking moment because I had given up complete hope at that point. And without you connecting the dots, getting me to that doctor at that point, getting me to Guadalupe at USC, getting me to Dr. Gong over at USC, I probably wouldn't be here right now because the seizures were progressing so bad and so severe that I had to force myself to come to terms with my own mortality. And I was like, fuck it, I need to go. I can't do this anymore. And so I had to then come to terms with like having a family and being like, well, fuck, I'm going to go. You know, I have friends who've killed themselves and they had families and, you know, I'm not one to like, you know, dwell on suicide, but definitely the fucking voices were coming up and the drugs I was on was definitely telling me things I shouldn't be hearing, especially fucking, I went through every single drug and nothing was working. And so I had given up. I was like, this is it, you know? And even the doctors were like, this is it, dude. You got no more options. We can't do brain surgery. I was ready to get my brain scooped out. I'm like, scoop my shit out. Let's go. Like, film this shit. I'll project it on a building and turn it into an art piece. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a fuck. I've been impaled. I've seen my friends shot. It's like, who cares? But at this point, you fucking called me when I would least expected it. And we did our little project, which then kind of was like, okay, this is cool. These are nice people. I'm not expecting this. And it pushed me a little forward when I needed it. But you got me to the fucking doctor. And the doctor, they were willing to take me on. And I'm still here. And the VNS is what's hopefully getting me to it. That gave me that little edge that I needed to try to survive, to say, okay, I can go a month without having these grand mal episodes. I can go 2 months without. The longest I've gone so far without having any sort of major fucking life-threatening episode is a month and a half. And 20 years, 15 years, 17 years, I don't even know.
Well, I mean,
So,
Ryan,
you know?
I'm so glad we got to you when we did, and we've had hours of conversation in Pasadena about, you know, those very real thoughts of not being here on this world anymore. And, you know, you talk about paying it forward, and I just look up to you so much about you paying it forward and, you know, doing projects like this. Look at this big crowd right here of inspiration. This was taken from Pershing Square, an artistic representation of the seizures 3, 4, and 5. You can see that devolution of electrical activity. And I can't wait to see what you create in the future. and continue to give back. And I'm so glad you're in better spirits with your family.
Yeah.
You know, tell me, yeah, man. I mean, you know, you're such a special person. You've influenced millions over the world as an artist, and then, you know, it just drives to the, you know, before healthcare was even available, you know, now it is. You know, you've influenced thousands of kids, if not, you know, millions. I see the YouTube comments from your videos that you've done with the Museum of Graffiti, and it kind of, I actually wrote this down. I'd like to read it right now. This is from a gentleman named Salvador. He says, I've met Saber and chilled with him a couple times. Real down to earth dude, much respect. I suffer from epilepsy myself. I had no clue until he started with the flag murals. I would like for anybody who reads this to try to wrap your mind around just waking up somewhere and not knowing who are the people around you. It's pretty damn fucking scary. Especially for those cats like me and Saber and any other person with epilepsy who've been down the tunnels and the alleyways no one would ever think of going down. So, I mean, it's so important for you to be sharing your story here, and I'm so glad that Shannon and I were able to have you on here, man. And I'm sure we'll have you on again. And thank you for sharing those vulnerable moments, man. I mean, you know, you're a force to be reckoned with. Seizures suck, we know it. We're going to be exploring that. I mean, hazy, not crazy. It's what we're about. I don't know. Maybe it's hazy and sometimes crazy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Saber, too. I mean,
no, thank you.
Some, you know,
I
people are
appreciate
going to
this.
really benefit from this.
It's important, and I guess
it's
the
good
one
for
thing
me.
I need to leave.
I've benefited.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's important to be able to explain things within this context because, you know, it opens up such a can of worms personally. So, you know, if it helps. So, for instance, one way to help somebody is I'll catch a scribe right where the USC neurology department is. And each year I'll catch a new scribe, just a scratch in the metal that only certain people will notice. Mm-hmm. And each year do a new one, only one for that year. So there's a few of them stacked up. So when that one kid comes and sees it, he recognizes it, and it gives him that one little spark that says, okay, if Saber was standing here looking out at this same view with no hope for the future or understanding of what is out there, and he was there all those years and he survived it, then I can too. And so that's what graffiti, to me, the language of graffiti is those little messages and memories, you know, to a certain degree. Little connector to the dots, really subtle connector to the dots. You know, there's a lot of those.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
But it's important. But any person I meet that tells me they have a seizure, they've had seizures, I immediately don't disregard them. I try to stop immediately and give them the time and energy that's necessary to hear their story, because sometimes their story gives me the strength I need. You know, because sometimes I'm a complete mess. This isn't an easy, you know. Some days I'm a complete mess, but other days I'm totally fine. And I'll meet some kid who's younger, who's way more difficult circumstances, and they give me the inspiration I need. When they're like, "What's up, Saber? Oh my God, I get to meet you. This is great." And I go, "Well, I met you." You know, like that. Right? I mean, some little kid who's like 12 years old who wants to do graffiti, and he's like, "Well, I met you." I'm like, wow, you know, like that's important, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Oh man, that's so beautiful. Send me a picture I want to share with everybody of Mr. Face from Return from the Dark Void. I want to see okay?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure people can relate.
Unfortunately, I had to add to him recently, but
yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, after the shit jizz and in front of the school situation.
I didn't go. No, this one was in front of my kid's school. Like, oh God. Hello,
One.
Mr. Shirko. You're doing so much better now. Oh, not every day. Like, nice to see you.
Yeah, every day.
I'm still standing. I'm not insane. I don't smoke meth. That's the first one I have to say. I don't smoke meth. And they go, okay, okay. I go, no, no, no. It's seizures, seizures. And they go,
Yeah.
all right, all right. Oh my God.
Well, tell Megan and the rest of the family say hello, okay?
I will. Thank
All
you,
right.
guys.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
Saber, so much.
All right, brother.
Thank
Signing
you.
Okay,
off. Say hi to the sunny California weather to me, brother.
I will.
All right. See you,
Goodbye,
Ryan.
guys. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was so good. He's amazing. I mean, and the message, and oh, wow, he said something about there are multiple layers to trauma, and that's so true. I think we only think that it's the seizure, or that people around think it's, oh, you had a seizure, but there's so many layers. It's after you had the seizure. How do you feel after? It's the people around you. What are they thinking about you? Are they talking about you? What are they saying about you? I mean, I thought that statement alone was so powerful
Yeah, and he talked about
for me.
the week after. Yeah, me too. The week after,
Yep.
you wake up with the dislocated shoulders. He reminded me I recently tore down all my closet doors, ripped the toilet out of the ground in a postictal state.
Yeah, you sure
So
did.
it's not
Yeah.
it's not like it's not like a 10-minute seizure. Those things are so powerful and so in a way soul sucking, And oh my God, he talked about those 2 times he returned from, flatlining and um
Yeah.
well
But
that
on a
was
way, people can relate to him. People
mhm.
get it, and I appreciate that about him, and that he's so honest and real
Yeah.
on some
Yeah,
level.
there's no
I
filter.
feel
Yeah.
like we miss that. No, I appreciate no filter. And I think other people will appreciate it too. And I
I
think our
agree.
listeners and viewers, I think everybody
Yeah, no, I think it's imperative.
is.
Um, it's imperative. Yeah, that was wow. That was so cool. All right, well, we got our first guest in the bag. Hazy Not Crazy.
Woohoo!
Woohoo.
I'm excited. I like
Yeah.
kind of what you said, hazy and maybe a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody on some level has their own crazy.
Sure.
So,
Sure. All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Insane.
perfect. All
Oh,
right.
I didn't get to show a picture of the big brain. I wanted to real quick. Look at this bad boy.
Okay.
Ooh, with the purple
That's
lights.
so awesome.
Yeah.
All you, Nathan, right there.
Yeah, that's all us right there, Shannon.
Nathan was responsible for that.
That
You
was
really.
all us. The tour. Oh, I didn't get to share some of his artwork.
Was that at the Rose Bowl?
That was at Pershing Square when we did that event with Ryan. But I wanted to share some.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we'll include this, but he did these really cool bomber jackets. There's Ariana Grande and Bella Hadid in it. This was one of his pieces with
Oh, I
Shepard
love
Fairey.
those.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a talented kid, and it's just, I love offering up this platform, talking about kind of his epilepsy and seizures first, all these stories to uncover. I mean, having a seizure in front of the Gaudi Cathedral, waking up thinking he was teleported to another country. I mean, imagine thinking you
Right,
woke up
not remembering.
in a different country. I mean,
Yeah, that's insane.
and then the assumption of his friend
And
thinking he just went out clubbing. It's like that same assumption. You wake up in the hospital, like he's got tats all over his arms. Like the first thing that goes is like, this kid's a drug addict, or this kid,
Oh, 100%.
they label him as a criminal just because of that. So we're gonna unpack this, and I can't wait for our next interview. And thank you guys for listening in. And check out the show notes for links to learn more about SABER's artwork and future upcoming episodes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And, if you have questions, anything, I mean, this was a pretty intense episode with a lot of information. And we're excited to talk more and get into more detail, as the episodes go on. I'm looking forward to this. This one was really, it's good for me every time. I'm hosting this, and I'm so impacted by everything that he said. I was glued to what he was saying the entire time. So,
Yeah, and I learned some
I'm
new stories today
personally
too.
looking forward to everything.
Yeah. All right, Shannon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Talk soon. And we'll be back for another episode of Hazy
Talk
Not
soon.
Crazy.